I wandered lonely as a cloud by William Wordsworth. I wandered lonely as a cloud that floats on high o'er vales and hills, when all at once I saw a crowd, a host of golden daffodils, beside the lake beneath the trees, fluttering and dancing in the breeze. Continuous as the stars that shine and twinkle on the Milky Way, they stretched in never-ending line along the margin of a bay. 10,000 saw I at a glance, tossing their heads in sprightly dance. The waves beside them danced, but they outdid the sparkling waves in glee. A poet could not but be gay in such a jocund company. I gazed and gazed, but little thought what wealth the show to me had brought. For oft when on my couch I lie, in vacant or in pensive mood, they flash upon that inward eye which is the bliss of solitude. And then my heart with pleasure fills and dances with the daffodils. The speaker of this poem is an adult who is reflecting on a previous experience of having witnessed a field of daffodils planted in mass beside a lake. There were so many daffodils that it was the sheer number that caught his attention and made this such a memorable experience, along with the movement of the daffodils in the breeze. And we have here from lines 9 through 12 emphasized the sheer number of daffodils, and Wordsworth uses hyperbole when he says 10,000 saw I at a glance, again just to emphasize how many daffodils there were and this blanket of yellow that covered this space. The situation in the poem involves the speaker, who is obviously looking back on this moment in his life in nature and this connection he has with nature. And if we go to the final stanza of the poem, we shift in time and we go to present time, where the speaker, he says, on his couch he lays and he is in vacant, his mind is cleared, or pensive mood. He's reflective, he's thoughtful. And it is in these moments that this vision of the daffodils flash upon an inward eye, which he calls the bliss, the joy of solitude, the joy of being alone. And I interpret that inward eye to be his mind, that this beautiful image, this image of the blanket of daffodils come to him. And by the final lines of the poem, they fill, and then my heart with pleasure fills and dances with the daffodils, signal to us that he is still, even though this experience is past, he is still getting pleasure from it. It's something he can call to mind, and it fills his heart with joy. If we talk about the structure of the poem, we note that the first 3 stanzas are devoted to the daffodils themselves, their look and their movement, whereas the final stanza, the 4th stanza of the poem, focuses on the speaker having moved beyond that experience, a present day, if you will, and conjuring up the daffodils in his mind. It's also worth noting, as here we transition from the 3rd stanza into the 4th stanza, that the speaker says, I gazed and gazed, but little thought what wealth the show, meaning the show of the daffodils, to me had brought. So he recognizes now that at the time he was looking at these daffodils, he didn't realize how much of an impression how much of a lasting impression this image would have on him, that it would actually be something that he would carry with him into the rest of his life. The poem is extremely rich in visual imagery And we begin with the beginning lines. I wandered lonely as a cloud that floats on high or vales and hills. And we, of course, have the image of the cloud moving through the sky, but we also have the simile, the comparison of the speaker himself to the cloud and his movement through nature, and how he seems to be maybe drifting, perhaps he's on a walk, and then stumbles upon this awesome sight of the daffodils. The visual imagery continues in this stanza, and of course we have the description of the color of the daffodils. He uses the word golden here. And then we have some kinesthetic imagery, and kinesthetic imagery deals with motion and movement, not so much of a person here, but of the daffodils, and he uses the word fluttering and dancing. And dancing catches my attention because we think of a person dancing, so we could question, is he personifying the daffodils here? And it seems as though he is, because if we look in stanza 2, the last sentence of that last line of that stanza, the daffodils are tossing their heads in sprightly dance. So the use of the word heads further contributes to that personification, almost the movement of the daffodils to that of a dancer. More visual imagery could be the stars up here, the stars of the Milky Way. He's emphasizing there just the stretching of this field of daffodils. And then, of course, the waves, and again, the visual imagery of the waves, that they're sparkling. Although he says the beauty of the daffodils was more so than these sparkling waves. We also have the imagery of multiplication and the continuous nature of this field through phrases like continuous as the stars that shine, and stretched in a never-ending line, and then 10,000 saw I at a glance. The overall tone of the poem is positive. Words in the third stanza like gay and jocund company. Jocund means mirth or cheerfulness. So I would say the overall tone of the poem is positive, that this was an experience that was enjoyable to him and one that he still takes pleasure from as he remembers it. As someone looking back on it. Thanks for listening, and hope you gained some good insight about the poem.